Hey, good morning, y'all. Josh's severe weather. I hope you are having a great Friday. And my thoughts are with those of you in the deep south from Texas to Tennessee and Mississippi that are still dealing with power outages. If you happen to be able to watch me, the good news is that we're going to see some better weather here for the weekend as we thaw out from this week's destructive ice storm. So the groundhog saw his shadow, and it's amazing that I even have to talk about this as a meteorologist. I'm up against a rodent. My goodness. Look, do I think it'll stay cold for some folks? Yeah, absolutely. We are definitely not finished with winter. However, 6 weeks of pure winter, not seeing that happen here. In fact, if you're in the east and especially the southeast, be prepared for the pollen to be kicking up here in the next couple of weeks. It's just pretty crazy how mild it's been. Despite the storm that we're dealing with right now, there are always going to be some differences. But I'm going to focus the majority of this video on some brutal cold and honestly some record-breaking cold for some of you all in the Northeast, especially New England. We've got the polar vortex to talk about, and I don't throw that term out there lightly. It is literally the coldest air in the stratosphere. When it drops down, it's not going to be with us all weekend, but it is going to be cold enough to produce some problems today and tomorrow. So let me share my screen and show you what we're talking about. And this is the region that I am concerned about. Pretty much New York State, New England, and Southeastern Canada and parts of Michigan are going to have some brutally cold weather. It has been cold in the upper Midwest. I don't want to ignore you guys, but you guys are more used to it than the Northeast, to be honest with you. But this is going to be some of the coldest air we've had in multiple winters here, with a blizzard warning in effect in parts of northern Maine due to the fact that not only is it going to be cold, but it's going to be pretty darn windy today and tonight. So this is going to tax your heating system here in the Northeast, no question about it. The rest of the Eastern U.S. is going to be colder as well. Florida will start to cool off this weekend. It'll stay chilly down south for the start of the weekend, but things are going to improve as we get later into the week. You see all this warm air over the Northwest and the Northern Plains. That is eventually going to spread back east in time for next week. So much like we saw in the center and southern part of the country here, central and southern part of the country right before Christmas, the cold is going to be extreme, but it's not going to last very long. However, I think it's very important to discuss the future of this cold. So before I get to the cold, I just wanted to kind of wrap up this past storm. We still have some rain here in the southeast. I'm going to show you guys a few storm reports. You can see that there was a little bit of ice yesterday in southeast Arkansas and northwest Mississippi. Some significant amounts of ice still, with 77% of southeastern Arkansas without power due to the ice. Dallas-Fort Worth had some issues as well, even down to the Austin area. We had some freezing rain yesterday and flooding across northeast Texas, with 13 roads wiped out by rain across Nacogdoches County. The good news is that that storm has pulled away from you guys and temperatures will slowly recover. It'll be much warmer here in southwest Texas, where we had some ice yesterday morning. And we did have a little bit of snow overnight in the mountains of North Carolina, 0.3 inches in Boone, not a big deal for those of you there, and a little snow yesterday as well across West Virginia and southwestern and south central parts of Virginia. Even some flakes fell in the Richmond area, but nothing that really stuck to the ground. Now, as we go on through today, you'll see the heaviest rain has shifted into Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina. The front is draped right through about here. It is still warm across Florida today, but that front is going to crawl southward, and we are going to see cooler weather this weekend. Maybe some locally heavier storms as well this morning near the Jacksonville area and down to the north and west of Gainesville towards the southern Big Bend, the Steinhatchee River here. But the rain will be lifting away from the Carolinas this morning. There is a very outside chance a few snowflakes mix in as the colder air tries to catch up with the moisture, but I don't think it's going to cause us any problems here, and really not going to end the snow drought either here in North Carolina or even the border with South Carolina. So let's talk about the cold. This is the European from weatherbell.com, and you all can see the temperature anomalies here. This is the departure from average from the European, and we see really cold weather here this morning over the upper Midwest, with departures as low as about 30 degrees below average across southern Minnesota, northern Iowa, western Wisconsin. There's a lot of snow on the ground, but look at how this cold intensifies as our polar vortex drops southeast here this afternoon over Quebec, southern Ontario, and northern New England. And that cold continues to drop southeastward this evening into southern New England and into the New York City area. We're going to have departures of 20 to 30 below average, but it's going to be so cold. I'm going to show you Mount Washington in a minute. You're not even going to believe it. Just some of the coldest air we've seen in quite some time. The good news, the people in the upper Midwest that have been shivering this week are going to see a big thaw coming. This is the milder than average air. And this is tomorrow morning. We still have a chilly morning across the mid-Atlantic and the Southeast, except for Florida, which is in that warm bubble. But as we get through the afternoon tomorrow, the cold very quickly um, loses its really icy grip over the eastern U.S. It's going to be a cold day tomorrow, don't get me wrong, all the way down into Georgia and North Florida, but we're already starting to warm back up here in the Midwest and Ohio Valley and into the upper Midwest. And this pattern continues as we get to tomorrow night, where temperatures in the Northeast and especially New England may actually warm tomorrow night. As the polar vortex, it drops in and then it leaves after a day. It's like an overnight visitor. That's it. While the West, I'm not going to say bakes, but definitely won't be nearly as cold. And by Sunday, we have above average temperatures expected for most of the eastern U.S., with the exception of still some chilly air lingering here in the Carolinas, but not for long. As we get into next week, this is Monday, we're right back to what we've been used to in January, and that's above average temperatures for most of us. So the West does cool down, so we're not done with winter, don't get me wrong, but it is going to be a nice little break coming early next week. So let's take a look at these departures from average. This is, I'm sorry, these are temperature changes from this time yesterday. We have seen temperatures drop 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit across Maine and New Brunswick, Fahrenheit that is. 30 to 40 degrees below what it was this time yesterday across Massachusetts and southern New England. It's about 30 degrees colder in New York State as well. And the cold is definitely flooding in here. So these are temperature changes. In the Southeast, a much colder day over central and northern Florida, southern Georgia, and South Carolina. We see temperatures that are going to be dropping by as much as 20 degrees from this time yesterday. And good news is, as we get, I'm sorry, this is tomorrow morning. So I don't know why it's doing, oh, okay. All right, let me back up. I'm sorry, folks. Okay, so late tonight, 50-degree temperature drop in 24 hours in the Northeast and New England, 20 to 30 in the Mid-Atlantic, 10 to 20 in the Carolinas, 20 to 25 in Florida. Overnight tonight, 20 degrees warmer than it was this past night here in the upper Midwest. As we go to about daybreak, we see a nice thaw starting tomorrow morning in the upper Midwest, but a colder day here across the Southeast, and definitely a colder day across New England. As we get to tomorrow afternoon, temperatures will be about the same as they were this time today across the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic region, but a cold day across the Carolinas and Georgia. Much warmer, though, tomorrow afternoon across the upper Midwest, 20 to 30 degree temperature jumps. And then as we get to tomorrow night, it will not be nearly as cold as tonight across New England, a 20 to 30 degree temperature climb. It'll still be cold tomorrow night, though, about as cold, if not a little bit colder than this past night here across the Carolinas, but a much warmer day expected here on Sunday across New England. So an overnight visitor tonight and tomorrow in the Northeast, and then temperatures moderate after that. Sorry for the confusion. I'm going to do better, I promise. All right, so what kind of temperatures are we talking about? Well, it is cold out there. Don't get me wrong. This morning, we are still 20 to 30 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit across Minnesota, and single digits below to 10 below across much of Iowa, and much of Wisconsin is below 0. Illinois is not quite as cold as we've seen in some winters, but it is still pretty cold out there, near 0 north of Chicago, teens and 20s in southern Illinois. Missouri, single digits north, teens in the south. Across Michigan, single digits for most of us, 10 to 20 below 0, though, in the colder spots. And we're looking at morning temperatures here dropping quickly over northern New England, 10 to 20 below 0. Canada, 20 to 30 Fahrenheit below 0. The Northeast is getting colder as well. And as the day wears on, temperatures actually are going to tumble a little bit more in parts of the Northeast. And we are going to be well below freezing today. So when you wake up this morning in D.C. and Baltimore, you're right around the freezing mark. But this afternoon, we're in the 20s with the winds picking up. So a brutal afternoon for those here in the Northeast. Cold in the Southeast as well. We're looking at 30s and low 40s today across the Carolinas, low 50s in South Carolina, mid 50s in Georgia, and a cool day as well across northern Florida and the Gulf Coast region. As we get to tonight, it's going to be a much colder night here in the Southeast. We are going to drop into the 20s and teens in the mountains of North Carolina with some brutal wind there. But really, the nasty cold is confined to northern New England. Temperatures dropping quickly this evening and staying there overnight tonight. 20 to 30 degrees below zero with near blizzard conditions across northern and eastern Maine due to the wind that will accompany this cold. Single digits around the Northeast. I'll zoom in and show you that. Maybe 5 to 8 degrees in New York City. Tack on the wind, it's going to be worse. 10 degrees around Philly tonight. Near 10 in Pittsburgh. Single digits across the mountains here. Teens tonight, mid-teens around Baltimore, Annapolis, and D.C. 20 degrees in Central Virginia around Fredericksburg. Low 20s in Richmond tonight. And as we get down into the Carolinas, we are going to be a lot colder, maybe our coldest night of the year. Not as cold, though, as what it was back around Christmas time, but certainly still pretty cold here. Low to mid-20s in the colder spots, mid-20s in parts of the Carolinas, including the Charlotte, Raleigh areas as well. So definitely some brutal cold here. What it's going to feel like is going to be a lot worse with the wind. We have wind chills right now, 30 to 40 below zero across Minnesota, 20 to 30 below zero across the rest of the upper Midwest. The Great Lakes, it feels like 10 degrees below zero around Chicago this morning, and some brutal cold coming to New England. We see these wind chills dropping quickly tonight, 50 to 100 degrees below zero Fahrenheit. The 100 is reserved for the mountains. I'm going to get to that in just a second here, but where most of us live, wind chills around Boston and up the coast, 30 to 50 below zero with wind chill warnings in effect. This kind of wind you do not experience often here in the Northeast. It is going to produce frostbite on exposed skin in just a couple of minutes. You do not need to be outdoors in this kind of dangerous cold. It is going to be brutal, dangerous, and potentially deadly. The rest of the Northeast, it's going to be brutally cold, not as bad as New England, but 10 to 20 degrees below zero wind chills will create frostbite in a matter of maybe 5 to 10 minutes. When you get down to the mid-Atlantic, 10 to 15 minutes before you start to deal with frostbite. So I want you all to be safe and just, if you can, avoid the cold tonight altogether. Tomorrow is going to be a cold morning, but fortunately by the afternoon, we start to see wind chills going back above zero in New York City. Still very cold, though, across New England, 10 to 20 below zero. This is going to cause some power outages and create some dangerous cold right through the day tomorrow. But the good news is, though, tomorrow night, you can see the cold is already retreating. And we have a rare night in the Northeast where it's getting warmer as the night wears on. That is the polar vortex leaving the area and retreating up into Northeast Canada and eventually up into Greenland. And Sunday morning, as some of you go to church, it'll be cold, but it will not be nearly as brutal. In fact, we're looking at wind chills getting above zero across the majority of the New England area, except for northern Maine and the mountains, of course. But much more tolerable Sunday morning with wind chills only in the teens and 20s in Minnesota and Iowa and Wisconsin. So that's a 50-degree temperature climb. In the Southeast, still bundle up. It's still cold, but this is not going to be nearly as bad as what we're dealing with later today through tomorrow morning. So that is the apparent temperature. That is the wind chill. And the reason why that wind chill is so low is we do have the expectation that as this cold plows southeastward, we're going to have winds in the 35 to 45 mile per hour range, except in the mountains. These kind of winds are really going to crank across coastal New England and cause dangerous boating conditions and probably some lake effect snow or ocean effect snow as well across Cape Cod and the islands. 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts this evening as that brutal cold drops down. It's one thing when temperatures are 20 to 30 below zero. It's another when you have 50 mile an hour wind on top of that. So this is going to be some brutal cold and maybe in a few places record-breaking wind chills as we continue on. In New England and Eastern Canada, some brutal wind as well. I'm going to show you that real quick here. Let me find Canada, because I know some of you are actually watching from Canada. I care about y'all. Here we go, Canada. And while we're here, let's do kilometers per hour. All right, so we are looking at 50 to 60 kilometer per hour wind gusts on the coastal areas, 70 to 90 on Cape Sable. Not Cape Sable, but across the far southeast peninsula of Newfoundland, and maybe some gusts well over 120 kilometers per hour here. And the majority of that wind is going to be tomorrow evening over the Bay of Fundy here, and also in areas between Prince Edward Island and the coastal portion of Newfoundland and Labrador as well. Brutal cold coming. And you can see these are the air temperatures in Fahrenheit tonight into tomorrow, 30 to 40 below zero Fahrenheit, which of course is the same Celsius. But you can see on here, 30 degree below zero Celsius temperatures overnight into tomorrow morning across much of southeast Quebec, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and also into Newfoundland as well. Now I'm going to talk real quick about Mount Washington, which some of you have probably visited, and you will not be visiting the next couple of days after you read this. The coldest air temperature that was ever recorded on top of the mountain is minus 47, and the lowest wind chill that was even calculated at all was minus 97. Those records I expect will be falling as the polar vortex drops through. Models are showing minus 47 to minus 50 Fahrenheit with wind gusts potentially as high as 135 miles per hour. Category 3 hurricane wind and 50-degree Fahrenheit below zero. That is going to create wind chills of 100 to 110 degrees below zero, breaking the record of 97 below. I'm very curious to see what the temperatures actually read out as, but this is going to be blizzard conditions and the kind of cold that rips skin layers off of your face. So with that, we've got a little bit of snow that's expected here with this boundary moving through today. Most of it's going to be over the ocean, but some light snow over parts of Pennsylvania, Northeast Ohio, Ontario, and central parts of New York right on through tonight. We will see ocean effect snow, some very cold air going over the milder waters of the Atlantic. Could see several centimeters across the southwest coast of Nova Scotia, a couple inches around Cape Cod, a little bit over eastern Long Island and the Long Island Sound as well. And that should wrap up in the morning tomorrow as everything pushes farther offshore. We'll see a little bit of snow moving in as warmer air moves in, kind of a warm frontal boundary here across the Huron area and into southwestern Quebec. And that could sneak up into northern New York State, maybe a little bit more snow here in northern New England on Sunday morning as temperatures do climb pretty quickly. You'll see on the ocean it's now rain Sunday morning as temperatures have very quickly moderated. I showed you all Celsius temperature. I will show you some snow amounts here in Canada and New England over the next couple of days, and we could see a couple inches of snow here. I'm going to move this back down so you all can see just the rest of the Northeast. And you'll see some lake effect snow could produce a couple of inches of snow off of Erie and Lake Ontario, a little bit of snow in Vermont as well over the next couple of days, but big amounts off of the coast. So if you really want to see snow in the Northeast, just go for a boat cruise. That's what I say. No, actually don't. It's going to be brutal. Very dangerous boating conditions, very cold weather. Just, some of these ocean waves, when they get picked up, will freeze midair off of Maine. So it's going to be really incredible here. And in Canada, centimeters, we're looking at 16 to 20 centimeters of snow today into tonight, maybe as much as 31 to 32 centimeters of snow right along the Northeast Quebec and Labrador border here, up to 35 centimeters here. Prince Edward Island, 20 to 30 centimeters, Nova Scotia, 20 centimeters, and we're looking at 30 centimeters as well in this region here. I think this is actually Prince Edward Island. I apologize. I'm going to work on my geography for you guys, but most of you aren't watching from there anyway. All right, so I'm going to shift south. We'll look at rainfall totals here, and the worst of it is coming to an end, except in Florida, where we could see an inch or two of snowfall, or inch or two of rain. No, not snow, over the east coast of Florida here around Melbourne and Vero Beach. So some welcome rain for South Florida. We could use some of that. I'm going to show you kind of what the forecast map looks like here. And this is the radar from this morning, and we see it is starting to dry out in Mississippi, northern and central Alabama, and North Carolina this morning. And right now the NAM model does not show any wet snow mixing in as the rain ends. It looks like the dry air gets here before the cold air catches up with the moisture. So maybe a couple snowflakes in here this morning, but really nothing to write home about. Farther south and east, we'll see some heavier rain in northern Florida this morning, shifting into central Florida where a couple of thunderstorms could happen. And I did want to show you all actually the Florida State forecast, because I feel like I've left Florida out because y'all just haven't had a lot of weather, but here we go. We will see a few heavier cells around Tampa Bay to the north and west of Orlando up to about Daytona here. This is lunchtime, midday here. And then these storms shift south and east and could produce locally strong storms around 3, 4 o'clock. You'll see some heavier cells here, but it's a narrow band. We're not dealing with soaking rain like your neighbors to the north, central Florida. We're dealing with a band of showers and storms that moves south and east and gets into South Florida here around this evening. And then it falls apart and we just have some coastal showers here tomorrow. So kind of cloudy, kind of cool on the east coast of Florida tomorrow. And then Sunday we have some return moisture and maybe some heavier cells over parts of north of Port St. Lucie, but getting up into Indian River and Volusia and Brevard counties, and around Sebastian here, Florida, tomorrow night into Sunday morning, and those will shift inland. So we could have some beneficial rain around Lake Okeechobee, around Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, the north side of Miami here Sunday morning. Could be wet getting to church. And then Sunday afternoon, we see that return flow moving up the east coast of Florida. And we'll see a few showers as well, moving through coastal Georgia, maybe getting up the Savannah River Valley close to Augusta Sunday morning. I've pretty much talked about temperatures for you guys. I do want to talk about the dew point. With this Arctic blast, we have some much drier air pushing down, and you're going to need the lotion and chapstick here in the southeast tonight. We see dew points in Raleigh right now are in the 40s. At the coast are in the 40s. They drop into the 20s this afternoon and into the teens tonight. We could have a dew point down to about 10 degrees in the Raleigh area, 20 in Charlotte, single digits in the mountains, below zero dew points here in Virginia. That is going to be some very dry air, pretty close to what we saw right before Christmas time. Temperatures don't get there, the wind doesn't get there, but the dew points do, and that is representative of the polar vortex dropping south. So some brutally dry air in place here right on through the night tonight. Sub-zero dew points expected over northeastern North Carolina, and teens below zero dew points in parts of central and southeastern Virginia at daybreak tomorrow. So brutally dry air. You'll need the humidifiers, you'll need the chapstick, and it's just going to be definitely a dose of winter. So the groundhog got that part right. The good news, though, is that this dry air does start to moisten up slowly tomorrow night and into Sunday morning. It is still a dry day on Sunday, but we see some recovery as dew points climb back into the 20s. For me personally, if the dew point gets below 40, everything cracks on my hands. If it gets below 20, I'm wearing gloves. If it gets down to zero, I'm not going outside. It's just not good for those of you who may have some breathing issues trying to exercise or move around in very dry, cold air. So that's something I want you guys to keep mindful of. But the good news, it's only going to be about a day and a half of that kind of weather. In the west, we've got another big storm moving in. It's been a little bit of a while, but northern Cal dealing with some rain this morning, some mountain snow. It could sprinkle down the Pebble Beach where the golf tournament's going on right now, but most of that rain stays north of the Monterey Peninsula and is aimed at the Pac Northwest here. We'll have some mountain snow and then kind of a bigger wave moving into the west coast here tomorrow night, especially in northern Cal and then southwest Oregon. And we'll see some heavy snow adding to the incredible totals we've had this winter in the mountains of the Sierra Nevada, as well as into the southern Cascades. And that will mostly be a push coming late tomorrow night into Sunday morning before things dry out as we get to Sunday night. So pretty good storm moving into the northwest. It's not going to cause major flooding, but it will cause quite a bit of rain right on the coastline and some heavy mountain snow as well. You'll see kind of here's the precipitation totals from the European through this weekend. You'll see amounts of 1 to 2 inches of rain on the coastline here, maybe up to 3 in northern Cal, and 5 inches of rain expected on Vancouver Island. So a nasty storm for Western Canada, and this moisture spreads into the interior of the Northwest and the Rockies. Pretty big snow expected as well, amounts of 1 to 2 feet here over the coastal ranges of British Columbia and the Cascades, as much as 2 to 3 feet of snow over the mountains of the Sierra Nevada, the ski areas of California, and we'll see significant snow as well in the Colorado Rockies, New Mexico Rockies, and Utah Rockies, and this will spread into Northwest Texas as well Monday night into Tuesday morning. A lot of wind as well, battering the coastline, 50 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts for the Pac Northwest, as well as on the front range here of Montana, Wyoming, and northern Colorado, gusts of 30 to 50 miles per hour. So definitely going to be nasty again on the West Coast here as we get to the start of the weekend. And really, that's about it. I've talked a lot about the East. I didn't want to leave you out in the West. In the Southern Plains, quiet weather for a few days. Next week, we're going to talk about another potential severe weather outbreak in places that have dealt with power outages from the ice. So I'm going to delve more into that for some southern and central United States severe weather and warmer temperatures next week. But really, I just want you all to be prepared for this nasty cold. So I really appreciate your time today. I am running a fundraiser for St. Baldrick's running through March 18th. I'm not going to shave my head, but the beard will be gone. And I'll have a link to that in my video description here. If you want to feel compelled to donate, I really would appreciate that. I just want to thank you all for your time today. If you could subscribe to the channel for more of the latest on this winter weather, I would really appreciate that. Invite your friends. And I just want to give all the glory to God for allowing me to do this. All the glory to Jesus Christ, my Savior, who has given me the eternal promise that one day I will be with Him. And I just wanted to share a quick passage for those of you who are still with me from Philippians 3. I talked about the priceless value of knowing Christ and what it means to me. Today, I want to talk about pressing towards that goal. Philippians 3:12, Paul says, I don't mean to say that I've already achieved these things or that I have already reached perfection, but I press on to possess that perfection for which Christ Jesus first possessed me. No, dear brothers and sisters, I have not achieved it, but I focus on this one thing, forgetting the past and looking forward to what lies ahead. I press on to reach the end of the race and receive the heavenly prize for which God, through Christ Jesus, is calling us. Let all who are spiritually mature agree on these things. If you disagree on some point, I believe God will make it plain to you. But we must hold on to the progress we have already made. And honestly, I think that the pressing on towards the goal, the leaving the past in the past and looking forward is what will help a lot of us increase our faith, knowing that there are things that have not happened yet that we can believe in, whether it be God, whether it be Jesus, or whether it just be what you believe personally. And it may not be what I believe, but I will completely not judge you and not, and I can relate to it, because for a long time, I was looking at what has happened in the past and expecting that to repeat itself. It's funny, we talked about Groundhog Day yesterday. I love that movie, Groundhog Day, where Phil Connors just continues to repeat the past in the past, but make a change every day to eventually, when he gets to his goal, where he gets out of that deja vu and it's a new day. Well, honestly, in the Bible, it says that, not looking at the past, but looking forward to what lies ahead and growing yourself, whether it be your faith or growing yourself as a person, but really you're running a race. And if you are a Christian like I am, you're running a race that one day will end with that heavenly prize, well, the price that was paid, but that prize for which God made and called us to, and that's to Jesus Christ, to heaven, to eternal life. So I just want to honestly challenge you to see that race through to the end and to not give up on the faith. Hold on to the rope. Continue to get around other believers if you can. Just stop just dwelling on the past and move forward. I could dwell on the past with this YouTube channel in 2 months. I'm not where I wanted to be yet, but I mean, yesterday's video kind of flopped, to be honest. People are tired of hearing about the ice. I get it. We're talking about new things. Trust me. We're tired of this mild winter. I get it. But you know what? There's a future for us. We may have some winter still. It's just February, and even March can get cold. So stop dwelling on the past. Look to the future. Look to God, and continue to run that race and press on towards the goal. That is my advice to you. And I'm happy to pray for you if you're struggling with your goals, if you're struggling in your faith. I've been there. Even today, I'm still struggling from time to time. I think we all are. But I want you all to see keep your eyes on the prize and to continue to press forward and not stress on the past. So that is that's my call to you. That's my encouragement. And I'm happy to pray for you if you really need it, even unspoken prayers. It means a lot. And it means a lot that you're joining my channel today. So thank you all so much. I'll have a video in the morning. Please stay warm. And I look forward to catching back up with you tomorrow morning. God bless you.